thank you to everyone out there, all the thoughts and prayers and well wishes. I think I have started to turn the corner on this 48 to 72 hour bug that I've run into. If it is some version of the 2020 sniffles, which I'm not sure it is, I didn't test for it, the most impressive part about this variant is its speed of attack, its speed of onset. I went from fine, perfectly fine, to flat on my back and hallucinating level fever in literally less than 8 hours. That's how fast it hit. But once again, we'll continue to have the best thoughts for the future and hope that it leaves as quickly as it arrived. Also, to those of you over at the Patreon channel, I will be catching up over there as soon as I possibly can. Hopefully the next couple days get my strength back. And we will continue our journey. Psychological operations. Things that go on in our head that drive our actions that we don't know about. We do things and sometimes we don't know why we do them. This is the biggest one right now. Now some people say, yeah, Florida Maquis, I get it about the lottery. That's a waste of money. Well, nobody really has any more or less chance than anyone else. I mean, I guess unless you're at this level, it's up to 1.25 million. Unless you have, hundreds of $1 million laying around doing nothing that you could buy tickets up with. But it's really kind of funny because people would say, well, I might do this with that money. I might do that with that money. But what good would that money do you in a power down, grid down situation? Now let's war game this for a minute and think about what some people might say in response. Well, Florida Maquis, the first thing I would do is I would start buying real goods. Me personally, I would buy property. I would buy a whole bunch of property, a whole bunch of land. And I would move out in the middle of nowhere where the power grid wouldn't matter. I'd find ways of generating my own power. And I'd live far, far away from everyone. Okay, let's go with that. This is landandfarm.com. 12,098 acres for a paltry $30 million. Levy County, Florida. Beautiful piece of property. Water, trees. I mean, this takes getting away from it to a whole new level. But there's something about this that might make you scratch your head. You think, man, oh, Maquis, this is perfect. This is perfect. I'd find a plot out here somewhere. I'd build a big old house. I'd get solar. I'd get generators. I'd get all this kind of stuff. I'd plant huge gardens. I'd have cattle. I'd have horses. And you could have just about anything you wanted out here on 12,000 acres for $30 million. I confess I'd probably do something like this. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to be able to see all of your property in any real amount of time. It's even got paved roads on it. Seems like it would be heaven. Cattle. And there's other properties like this all over Florida. But wait a minute. Now let's think about something else. Let's say one day you were out checking your property and on one corner of it, all of a sudden, you found a homeless encampment where a whole bunch of people had showed up and just started living there. And then you realized it was a lot bigger than you thought. Remember, this is 12,000 acres. You'd need helicopter patrol to keep something like this from happening. This could easily crop up in a matter of a couple of weeks and you'd never know. Now, in a power down, grid down situation, where there were no authorities, no civil courts, no police you could call, you would need to have your own private army to go run them off your land. You couldn't do it by yourself. You couldn't do it if you had 1,200 acres, much less 12,000. You see, these are the really good decision makers of the world. These are the really bad decision makers of the world. But they have figured something out. If there's enough of them all together, no one person can do anything to move them. And a lot of these homeless encampments are armed. If your idea is, I'm going to go get a huge piece of property and live by myself, away from everyone, how are you going to defend that huge piece of property without help from the authorities? If there are no authorities to call, and it's just you on 12,000 acres somewhere, that's going to be a tough thing to do. You're going to need to have an army at your disposal. See, these folks live in a place called the Villages. And we've talked about that extensively recently. And they live in a bunch of cookie cutter houses all around each other. And they call it paradise. And some people think that's insane. But you see, they realize something. A lot of people who think they can do it all by themselves end up getting tossed into communal situations against their will. And that's what's really coming. Because I'm sure a lot of people didn't think about that. Well, I mean, let's go through the logic again. The idea is you want to live alone on a huge, giant chunk of property all by yourself. Well, who's to say where the lines are and are not without government? Who's to say where the lines are and are not without government? Especially no civil courts. Now, some people's dreams when it comes to lotteries are a little less grandiose. But it's still something to think about, though, when you think about the 7 deadly sins and you think about the 10 commandments. If my neighbor has a truck that boy, I'd love to have that truck. Love the color, love the make and model. That's the exact same one I'd love to have, but man, I don't want to get it and seem like a copycat, but I might anyway. Would that not be seen as covetousness or envy? But it all just occurs in my mind. Maybe I'm sitting out on the porch and just admiring that truck and wishing I could have that truck and not harming a soul. Yet it's still one of the 7 deadly sins and a violation of the 10 commandments just to do that. A boat that has a smaller boat and 2 jet skis. Sounds like that'd be a ton of fun. Could easily get that with $1 billion lottery and have money left over, but the Bible says even wanting it is a crime, a violation. Even though that want, that desire to maybe get away to a tropical escape, have your own seaplane, all these things that you don't have now, the Bible says these are just as vile a violation as any other, because the 7 deadly sins aren't ranked and neither are the 10 commandments. Who wouldn't want their own island? See, all of these things, sloth and greed, gluttony, envy, all of these things can exist inside of someone with no external evidence that you could convict someone of. If I see a woman and I think, wow, she's beautiful, she's incredible, as long as I don't say anything and I'm just standing there looking. Gluttony, I suppose you can look at someone and say, yeah, they're a glutton. But who's really harmed? Is society harmed by somebody being fat? Greed, sloth, all these things that people get so bent out of shape about. But I read this article from DJ Khaled, puts his name on the $1 billion Mega Millions jackpot. He bought a whole bunch of tickets and he was trying to show them off. I'm not going to repeat a lot of what he said, but he said something at the bottom, I think that probably hits the nail on the head for most people. He said, quote, "I'm not the type of person to play the lottery because I think it's a scam that is used to take people's money. But a grand prize of $1 billion will make a brother rethink his morals." Yep, that's right. You see, for him, it's about the money. For him, it's about the money, the Ten Commandments. And this is where the rubber is going to meet the road of this video. How many of these would you violate to save your children from starvation? How many of these would you violate to save your children from starvation? Would you violate the Sabbath? Would you steal? Would you lie? Bear false witness? If you were out of food and you couldn't feed your family and you were desperate, how many of these things would you violate to protect your children? One of the reasons I have focused on this story that is told in colonies so much is because you have two sisters that are in desperate straits to protect their children. Katie Bowman here, and we've talked about her sister. I forget the name of her sister, it's right off the top of my head. Her son needed insulin. Maddie Kenner. And they both are literally at the point where they're like, I don't care what we have to do. I don't care what we have to do. We are in a survival situation. You do what you have to do. I'm going to do what I have to do. She had a child that was missing, that she hadn't seen in a year. They had to do what they had to do. And most North Americans have never been in this position to either hang on to some sense of morality in their life or protect their loved ones. Because that's what war is about. When the Germans occupied France, that's what it was about for the French. It's where the whole term, this is the channel's the Florida Maquis. The whole point of the Maquis were French citizens who had been run out of their homes in their homeland by the Germans and were existing as freedom fighters out in the scrublands. They had no luxury of morals or morality in their fight against the Germans. And anything that caused the Germans a problem, anything you could do, it didn't matter what it was. That was what you did to make sure that one day your kids might be able to sit around a table with their parents for breakfast. See, to me, that's why I kind of focus on this, because that's what's going to happen when the lights go out. Morality is going to go out the door because it's going to be survival. And there's going to be no room for people saying, well, I wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't do this. You'll do whatever you got to do. And that's just reality, but I will leave that there. Thank you once again, everyone joining us at Patreon, $1 US per month. Even less if you sign up for an entire year. I think it's something like 90 cents per month. Fully refundable first 90 days. We will be getting a lot more into this, because I think these are the important discussions to have in your survival groups. Where's our line? What do we do? What if this happens? What if that happens? Where do morals cross the line with our survival expectations? What would we or would we not do to feed ourselves, to feed our kids? So anyway, God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.